Do you ever wonder why some conversations just fall apart? National dialogue over the last decade has gotten really tense, and this has included a lot of hot topics like abortion, climate change and the upcoming extinction crisis, and more recently, police brutality, systemic racism, and even whether or not there's a right way to protest. And without any meaningful progress towards change, things get tense. So, why is it that we can't seem to get anywhere? There are a lot of reasons. Lack of listening, inaction by those in power, structure and cultural problems, but at least part of it is that we're not all having the same conversation. Sharon Crowley and Debra Hawhee use the abortion debate as a great example of the problem. In this conflict, the argument often breaks down on two sides. One side argues that a woman has full bodily autonomy, and the other side focuses on the morality. But I've got a newsflash for you. This argument is going nowhere. But not for the reasons that you think. Let's try switching out their arguments with something a little less controversial. There, can you see it? They're both arguing something vaguely to do what belongs on a pizza, but they're stuck on different issues. This person is concerned about the quality of the pizza, what makes it good or bad. This person is concerned about how to categorize the ingredients. If fruit doesn't go on pizza, then what about a tomato? They're arguing past each other. This argument is not in stasis. Stasis comes from the Greek word meaning to stand. According to Crowley and Hawhee, stasis is literally the place where people take opposing stands on an issue. It's the place where both sides agree on how they disagree. In order for an argument to be in stasis, all sides have to be taking opposite stances on the same issue. For every X, there needs to be a not X. It's kind of like a guitar. You can't make music unless you're pulling the string from both ends. Or you can think of stasis as being like a fist bump. The point of success is when you have direct contact of opposing forces. Direct opposite force creates stasis. But if you and your opponent aren't disagreeing about the same things, your arguments don't connect. You don't have stasis. You have some awkward flailing and a really lame fist bump. So Crowley and Hawhee remind us that the actual arguments being made must be made in stasis and not just the end result. If you want to be in stasis with the argument, it is morally reprehensible to kill a fetus, they point out that you have to make the opposite claim, that it is not morally reprehensible to do so. The same goes for this argument. If you want to be in stasis with the argument that a woman has complete autonomy over what happens over her body, the opposite claim is that a woman does not have complete autonomy over what happens to her own body. So the point of stasis is to get everyone arguing on the same page. But how does that work? You need a systematic way to walk through the issue and find your points of agreement or disagreement so that this no longer happens. Greek rhetoricians divided up the main questions of debate into four really broad categories that moved from simple inference to future actions. These were conjecture, definition, quality, and policy, and they logically follow from one to the next. The idea behind the four stases was to have two sides start their argument with what the facts of the case were and what could be inferred from them. Once those were agreed on, they could move down the list to other categories like the nature of the case, if it was good or bad, and what should be done. They could keep moving forward until they found a moment of disagreement, and if it couldn't be clarified, they would have to stop and discuss that one point until they found a solution. So, what kinds of questions exist at the level of each category? Debates should always start at the level of conjecture, specifically, what can be inferred about the issue from the facts. This can include the who, what, where, and when of a situation. Unless you agree on the basics, the conversation is dead in the water. Next, it is important to consider the nature of the problem at hand, if it's individual versus corporate, legal versus moral, and whether or not it's connected to related issues. It's important to make sure that you seek out the solution for your issue in the right arena. Next, you and your conversation partner can discuss the value or qualities of the issue. There are a lot of ways to assess value, so it's important to be in agreement on how to assess the solution as well. And finally, once other things are hashed out, you can formulate a plan. This is a deliberative mode, so here's where you can hash out the details. What should be done? What would be the most effective maneuver? What would be the consequences? Who benefits? And what are the pros and the cons? So the point of Stasis is that it can help you figure out where to start conversations for the most effectiveness, but it also lets you know when it might be a good idea to stop. Basically, every time you discuss an issue with another person, you need to start from the basics. See how you each interpret the facts. Next, every time that you make a claim, you need to also think about which of the 4 Stasis it would fit under. Do the same for your conversation partner's claims as well. If you find out that you and your conversation partner end up answering different questions, suggest that you take a step back to whichever one is lower on the ladder. If you're talking policy and your friend is talking about definitions, back up to definitions with them. And if you can't keep your friend from breaking stasis, it might be a good idea to table the discussion until later. Remember that if you're not actually having a conversation directly at each other, it's not going to go anywhere. You may want to table the conversation and try again later. But now, let's talk about how stasis can make you a better writer. Let's say that you want to solve the problem of active shooters on school campuses, so you start by doing a lot of research figuring out which sides make what arguments. You find out that one side of the argument believes that the problem is serious, that it's an issue of mental health, and that because of that, it's mostly unavoidable, but you can help it some through better mental health services. Your research also shows that another angle believes that the problem is also serious, but that it's fundamentally a gun accessibility issue, and because of that, it's fixable with legislation. If you jump immediately to policy in your paper, you're going to have people arguing apples and refrigerators, because their competing policy proposals are going to look nonsensical to each side because neither of them agrees on the cause. But if you start your argument by examining the nature of the issue, now you might get somewhere. If you can put together a good airtight argument on definition, then you can work through the quality of the issue and get to the payoff, what the policy should be to solve the problem. The best arguments are the ones that meet the other side at the point of disagreement and guide them through the argument to the end. So the next time you look at some national issues, listen to the arguments they're making. See if they're actually in stasis or talking past each other. Okay, I'll catch you in the next video.